In this second video on slope, we're just going to cover a little bit more about the basics. In this video, we're going to find the slope given a line's graph and draw a line based on a given slope, starting with a point. Remember the basics of slope. Slope is rise over run. We rise up, we run to the right. And again, you can have a negative rise and you can have a negative run. Just make sure that if rise or run is positive, you rise up, you run to the right. Now let's try a couple examples. I'm going to illustrate these with a piece of spaghetti. Now what I've got here is just a piece of graph paper. There's no coordinate plane. You don't see the x and y axes. We're just talking about slope. So what if I were just to place my piece of spaghetti down like this and I say, what is the slope? Well, from our previous video, I hope you can see that this is an uphill slope. And it is also a gentle uphill slope. It is not very steep. So this slope has to be a positive number because I'm rising positively and running positively. And it probably is going to be a fraction because I am running a lot further than I'm rising. I'm rising a small amount and running a larger amount. So chances are this is going to be a fraction. Now I'm going to put some dots in here where the spaghetti is, just so you can see this a little more vividly. So these black dots are where my line is. I'm going to move the spaghetti out of the way, and we're going to count increments of the slope. So here I rise 1 and I'm running 3. Rise 1, run 3. Rise 1, run 3. Now sometimes students get confused as to counting, and so one way of counting this is just imagine it's a board game piece. You don't say 1, 2. When you're playing a board game, when you go to move it, you just move it 1. Now if I'm going to move to the right 3 spaces, again I don't count 1, 2, 3, 4. You don't count the initial location, you move it 1, 2, 3. So my slope in this case is I'm rising 1 and I'm running 3. So my slope of this line, my slope is 1/3. Let's try another example. Again, I'm just going to place my spaghetti down and see if we can draw some conclusions. Well, again, as we read this left to right, this is a downhill slope, which means that the slope will be negative. It is also fairly steep, so chances are this slope will be bigger than 1. And when I say bigger than 1, it's a negative slope, so it's going to have an absolute value bigger than 1. So let's, again, graph a few points. Just move the spaghetti out of the way. I'm going to graph some points for this line. All right, and now we're going to count the slope. So starting with any point, I am rising 1, 2, 3 in the negative direction. I am not rising 3, I am falling 3. But I am still running to the right 2 spaces. So this purple line, I am rising -3, but then I am running +2. I am rising -3 and running +2. So this line has a slope of -3/2. And when we deal with slopes, we like to deal with fractions. People can understand fractions because it's rise over run. So there's no need to type this into a calculator or to convert it to, say, -1.5. We like our slopes to be fractions. Now, let's try a couple other applications. In these cases down here, we are going to start with a point, and given a slope, we're going to have to draw a line from that point. You're going to be doing this a lot when you graph lines. So here, the slope is -1/3. Notice I put the negative in front of the 1. I'm rising -1, so I'm going down 1, and then I'm running 3, running to the right. 1, 2, 3. Let's try it again. Rise -1 and then run 3. So my line will look approximately like that. If I had used a ruler, it would be nicer. Please notice This is a gentle downhill slope. Again, this is a fraction. It's a fairly small fraction. Gentle downhill slope. Another thing is downhill slope means negative slope. Downhill line, negative slope. Let's try this one. We'll try this in blue. My slope is 2. So I start here. Rise 2. Well, what's the run? I don't see a run. So you can actually write this as a fraction. Rise 2, run 1. Rise 2, run 1. And you can keep going. Rise 2, run 1. So this blue line has a slope of 2. And again, we like to see slopes as fractions, so writing 2 over 1 is perfectly acceptable. Again, positive slope, I have an uphill graph, slope's bigger than 1, so this slope is getting fairly steep. And let's try a couple special cases. A slope of 0, well, how do we write that as a fraction? Well, 0 is the number 0 divided by any number. 0 divided by 5, 0 divided by 2. So let's just pick a number. Let's just say 2. I just made that number up. The slope of 0, we can write as 0 over 2. Rise 0, in other words, I'm not rising at all, but I am running to the right, 2. Rise 0, run 2. And I connect these with a line. Again, a slope of 0 gives me a horizontal line. And lastly, let's try this one in pink. Here my slope is undefined. And I hope you remember from the last video, the number that is undefined is because we were dividing by 0. And again, let's pick a number, say 3. Let's try dividing 3 by 0. Well, you can't. 3 divided by 0 is undefined. But now it's in a fraction, so we can actually graph the slope. Rise over run. Rise 3. Run, well, I'm not going to run. I'm going to run 0. Let's try it again. Rise 3. Run 0. So this line, this nice vertical line, has an undefined slope.